Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening, or if you're joining from other parts of the world, whatever time it is, thank you for joining us. I'm very happy that you're here. A little bit about myself. Let me hit this. So there'll be a start. There we go. Okay, so a little bit about myself. I am a BI consultant, speaker, blogger, and data platform MVP. I've been working on data warehouse projects for 20 plus years, which now sounds like a very long time. I've been focused on Power BI and before that analysis services for most of this time. If you want to connect with me, I would be more than happy to connect with you. You can reach me on LinkedIn or Twitter, or you can email me. I also have a blog that the link for it is posted below. All right, so this session is for people who already know how to create Power BI reports. And it focuses on sharing. So you've created a great report. Now you want to share with your colleagues. You want to understand all the different options. It focuses on certain aspects of sharing. It's more on the beginner side. It does not include the more advanced options of sharing with outside of the org or embedding with APIs. It does not include the Power BI report server. So when you want to share a Power BI report with other people, you have two main routes. One of them is to use the Power BI service, and the other one is to not use the Power BI service. If you're using the Power BI service, you have the following options. You can directly share out of a workspace. You can use a workspace app. You can use Teams. You can embed in SharePoint and other web applications. So these are different methods of sharing. And if you're not familiar with some of these terms, don't worry about it. We're going to talk about them in more detail. And then on the other hand, it's a non-Power BI service, which if you don't have access to Power BI service for sharing, that's okay. You can email the file to somebody. However, you have to be very careful when you email a file. You must send it encrypted, of course, if it has sensitive data, because sometimes the Power BI files actually contain the data as well. So whoever opens it is going to see the data. So you have to be careful with that. But other than email, obviously, these are some other methods you can put on a shared folder, on OneDrive. Obviously, not the best way, but the option is there for you if you don't have access to Power BI service. Okay, so today we're going to focus on the left column. Now, just to give you some idea, some general look at overview, high-level overview of what we're going to talk about. Okay, so this is what we're going to learn by the end of this session. Hopefully, it'll be clear, right? So in Power BI service, when you have a report, when you publish it to Power BI service, it will go into this container called a workspace, which is a place for you to collaborate with others. You can send many reports to one workspace. Now, in order for you to be able to publish to a workspace, you must have been given permission. You must be a member of that workspace, okay? So all the members can see all the reports, and we're going to talk about different levels of membership. Some members can publish, okay? Now, from this workspace, you can give certain people access to one report at a time. So you can say, I want consumers group A to see only Power BI report 3. So there's a difference between workspace members and individually sharing a report with one person or one AD group, okay? So this is the second option. And the third option is to use this thing called an app. It's another grouping that is associated with the workspace. It is not a Power Apps app. It's just reuse of the word app, which makes some people confused. Now, with the app also, you can give a set of consumers access to certain reports. So with an app, you can bundle a bunch of reports. So when someone connects, depending on where they fall, they're going to see different things. They can see all the reports, they can see one specific report, or they can see a bundle, a subset of the reports. So this is what we're going to learn about for the most of this session, all right? Okay, so I'm going to go do a quick demo before we get into the slides. So hold on a second. Let's go here. So I'm going to open up Power BI Desktop and bring it to my second monitor. There we go. So I am logged in here with my user. I have a couple of test users set up. This user is called Test Pro User because it has a pro account. We're going to talk about it in a little bit. So when I have my report ready, I can click on Publish. It always asks you if you want to save it. And it's going to take a few moments. All right. And it gives me the name of all the workspaces that I have permissions to publish to. So you can see this particular user can publish to these workspaces. And I'm going to pick this workspace and click Select. And it's going to publish this report to that workspace. Now, because I've already done this before, it's asking me, do you want to overwrite it? All right, so it takes it a moment, and then it will provide you with a link to directly open up the report in Power BI Service. So I'm not going to do it from here. I'm going to open it up from the browser that I already have set up because I have several users logged in at the same time in different browsers to show you a couple of scenarios. Okay, so this is the Power BI homepage, and I'm logged in with my Test Pro user. So first things first, if I go under the profile, I can see that this user has a pro license. All right, I'm going to talk about licenses in a little bit. Now, here you can see that if I go to Workspaces, I will see the same set of options that I saw from Power BI Desktop. Also, I see this thing called My Workspace, okay? So let's go and check out this ABI Premium Workspace first that we published too. So as you can see, this report was just published one moment before, right? And I can open this report and look at it. And once you have the report open, so you can share it with others, and I'm not going to click on it yet. You can export it, you can analyze in Excel, you can open it up and you can share it with Teams. So you have a lot of sharing options from here already. Now let me go back here to show you something. So pay attention to this. So I had one Power BI file, right? I uploaded it, I published it to the service. If I go under all, you're going to see that in the service, it immediately becomes two different files, a report file and a dataset file. And the report file points to the dataset file. So even though on your desktop, it's one file, the moment it goes into the service, it's split into two. I'll talk about this a little bit later. So let's go back to the report. Okay, so here we are within one workspace. All right, so first of all, who gets access to see this workspace? So how can I get access to this workspace, right? When does it show up for somebody here? It shows up for everybody who has been given access as a member, okay? So you can type someone's email address and you can choose from different levels of membership. You must at least have a viewer in order to see the workspace. If you're any of these levels, you will see the workspace show up for you on the left-hand side, okay? Now, if you don't want to give people access to see the workspace and you want to just share one report out, what you do is you can click on your report and then you click on share and you follow this screen. So it gives you different options, and we're going to talk about the options in a little bit. So I just want to give you a quick overview of some of the things you can do, and then we'll talk about nuances in here, okay? So this will generate a link that you can copy or email to people. And what it does is that it will give people, whoever gets that link will have permissions to see that one report that you shared with them. All right, and then finally, let me go back here. You see that there is something called an app associated with this. So let me actually go and unpublish this app. And now I can click on Create App, and this will create an app for this workspace. And what do apps look like? So if you go on there, the apps, you can see other apps that have been shared with you. So I'm not going to click on this yet either. And there is another tab called Shared With Me. This is where the reports that other people have shared with you show up. These are reports that you don't necessarily have access to the workspace, but people have shared with you from one way or another, okay? So this is a quick demo of what happens to Power BI report when it goes into the service, members of a workspace, different sharing options on the app. We're going to come back to the app in a little bit. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go back to the slides. And now we're going to dig in a little bit more. Let me hold on a second. I have a question in the chat. Let me pause here. So it says,
and you can answer that later. I put that in.
I think there's a good, let's take a look at it right now. So it says, if I'm using multiple workspaces to share reports with different groups of people, and I want 2 reports in different workspace to connect to the same data set, what is the best design? Do I put the data set in workspace A and then manually add the users from workspace B? Or do I, okay, so the answer is, I have a slide for you later on. Great question. I think I have the answer for you. So hang in there and let me know later on if that slide doesn't answer your question, we can review. All right, here we go. All right, so there are 4 different things that come into play before somebody can open your report. And all of these work together. They're all connected. There's not necessarily an order of how these go. So the first thing is the kind of Power BI license they have. And we're going to talk about the options. So the license is important, whether they're a free user, a pro user, or premium per user. Okay. Then it's the workspace membership. Have they been given access to Workspace? Have they been given permission to a report or an app? So you must give people permission. Okay. Now, along with that, the type of workspace is important. So there's 3 kinds of workspace. There is the shared, premium, and PPU, premium per user. These are the current workspace. Now, all of them work together. Now, if a user comes in and passes through all of these, then they will make it to the report. Now, the report itself may stop a user from getting to the data. A report can have role-level security implemented, or if it's a live connector or direct query to a data source, and that backend has security in place, it's not going to show any data. So in order for a user to see data on a report, they must fit all of these categories nicely. So we're going to review each one of these categories separately. Okay, so let's take a look at the report type first. Usually, Power BI reports, when you create them from most of the training you go through, they start with, let's import data from SQL Server, let's import data from SharePoint or Excel, and now you create your visuals along with it. But that's not necessarily the best practice. The best practice is to look and see if there is a data set already published for you, whether in Power BI data sets or analysis services where your report can reuse an existing model, okay? The other kind, which most people are used to, is where a Power BI report contains the visuals and a semantic model. Now, the semantic model can be an import where you have moved all the data from the source into memory, or it can be the one where it has a semantic model, meaning that it tells Power BI how to connect and join the tables, but it forms a query to the backend. So for example, it forms a SQL. So depending on which one of these you have, when a user gets to it, they're going to have a different experience. So for example, the one that has imported all the data, if you email to somebody, they can open it, they can see the data. But if you email the one that's in direct query, they must have access to the backend SQL Server. Now, also, you can have role-level security, you can have a combination of these two. It's not necessarily this or that. Now, just a side note, if you started with a Power BI file that has both of these, it's not too late. You can separate them out. It's very easy to do. I have a YouTube video that shows you this with a little cartoon, how to do it very quickly. Okay, so this is for the different kinds of reports. This is important for you to understand, because once everybody passes through all the other steps, then people ask, hey, how come I don't see data? The reason is look into your back end or your role-level security. You may be getting stopped there. Now, let's look at another section. So now let's focus on user licenses. So currently, there are 3 kinds of user licenses available. First of all, it's the free license. It's not really free, meaning that they must be part of your Office 365. Better name for it is a business user. So these are people who are not content. They don't need to create content. They just are interested to open reports and run them. The second category is a pro user, which has been around for a long time now. It costs close to $10 per month per user. So if you want to publish and create content, you must have a pro license. Now, the newest kind of license is the Premium Per User. It's an additional $10 on top of a pro. It gives you access to certain premium features. So if you don't have a premium capacity, I'm going to show this in more detail later, but you want to get access to some of the features, one option is to go with this Premium Per User account instead of the Pro account. All right, and then the workspace type. So when you publish, you get an option of where to publish to. One of the places you can publish to always, regardless of what user you are, it's called My Workspace. It's meant to be your personal playground. Everybody can publish to their My Workspace. On the other hand, there are these app workspaces that are meant to be for collaboration with others. So for example, the one that I published to, that one was an app workspace. Because that's a place where I want to share content with others. So there are 3 kinds of app workspaces. The non-premium, they come in non-premium, and then premium and Premium Per User Workspace. So let's look at the non-premium. So first of all, on the right-hand side, see a free user cannot publish anywhere. So the free user is on the left, but it's missing from the right-hand side. So you must be either a pro user or PP user to publish to any of these. Now, the pro user can publish to a shared workspace, non-premium, also known as a shared workspace, or to a premium workspace. In this middle column, okay, you have paid for your user license, and also you have paid for the workspace. A premium workspace costs money, not directly, but indirectly, because in order for you to have a premium workspace, you must purchase a premium capacity from Microsoft, which is a dedicated, hence not shared, okay? So shared workspaces, they don't have any direct cost. The cost is only in the licenses of people who publish. The premium workspace costs money because of the capacity that's sitting behind it. But also you have the license cost on top of that. And then finally, there is the Premium Per User Workspace. Again, this one is kind of like between the two. It's not quite shared, it's not quite premium. It gives you the option to play with the premium features, but it is not forcing you to purchase a capacity from Microsoft. And because of that, the workspace doesn't have a cost. You only have the user cost, okay? So what's the catch there? The catch is going to be when you're consuming data from it. And let's look at it in a second. So now the opposite. Now we're going to consume data. So on the left-hand side, you publish to your personal playground. You can consume from it. If you're a pro or PP user, you can even share out of it with other people in your team. It's not recommended for you to do that because Power BI service admins cannot get into your workspace at all. So if you leave the company or something happens to you, then no one else can fetch that content. So it's not recommended that you create production reports out of there, okay? Now on the right-hand side, notice that the only kind of workspace that a free user can access is the shared workspace that's sitting on the premium workspace. Okay, there's no license cost for the free user. However, for the premium workspace, indirectly, there is a cost. And then the catch with the Premium Per User Workspace is that while it has no direct cost, only PP users can access the content. So that's the restriction. And this from a cost perspective, it makes sense because you're actually reaching to the premium features without having paid for it. And so because of that, you only can do it with the PPU users. So at least this is the current pricing model. All right, so then you put together the user licenses on workspace types, and everything that I just explained comes together. So a free user, they can publish and read from their My Workspace. They can only consume from a premium workspace, nowhere else. And that's only if someone has given them permission. What happens if a free user tries to access something that they don't have the right license for? They will get a message that says, do you want to upgrade? And actually, sometimes recently I noticed that it will, it doesn't even ask you to try free. It will automatically up you to the next level up. All right. And then the pro user, again, so the pro user is meant to be for developers, for testers, and they can do everything in My Workspace. They can do everything with Premium Workspace. They can also publish to a non-premium workspace. So pro user can publish everywhere and consume from everywhere if they have been given permission to. And what if they try to access something that's in a Premium Per User Workspace? They get a message that says, do you want to upgrade to the next level up? So gives you a 60-day trial. After that, it's an additional $10 on top of the current license. And then finally, the Premium Per User is like a super user. They can publish everywhere. They can consume from everywhere, regardless of the workspace type. So what are some of the common scenarios for companies in terms of the user licenses and workspace? So one scenario is if you don't have a large organization and you don't want to buy a premium capacity, then you can give everybody a pro license. Everybody, whether they're a consumer or publisher, they will pay $9.99. And this works for some organizations. On the other hand, if you're working with a larger company, what you can do is you can have some people with a pro license and some people with a free license. In this scenario, you need to have that premium capacity, which starts from about $5,000 per month. Now, remember, you can have many workspaces on a capacity. Think of a capacity like a server and a workspace like a database. It's not quite the same thing, like a shared folder on that server. Okay, and then finally, all right, so what if you want some of the premium features, but you can't pay for the premium? You have fewer users, it's not really worth it for your organization to do that, then everybody must be a PP user, whether they're consuming or publishing in order to be able to get to the content. All right, and then the permissions. So let's say you have the right user license for the right workspace type. Someone must give you permissions in order for you to see the content. So I showed you in the beginning where you can define members of a workspace. So that's one way, right? So you can give somebody access to a workspace. They become members. These are meant to be your teammates. These are not meant to be people outside of your team. However, you can sometimes give people viewer permission, which is the lowest level. It honors role-level security, which is very important if you have it. And it's really suitable for testers. Otherwise, it's recommended that you use the app, the Workspace app, okay? Next level up is a contributor. It can do everything a viewer can do, but they can publish. Next level up is a member. They can update the app, the Workspace app. And finally, there is the admin that has full control. Now, typically, I see a couple of admins. It's always good to have more than one admin and a bunch of members and a couple of viewers. I have not seen the contributor use a lot. So now that we looked at all these options, let's take a look back at that original slide that I showed you, okay? So when you publish, you can publish many reports to one workspace. if someone's given access to the workspace via membership, they can see all the reports, then all or nothing. You cannot hide some, okay? The second category is if you've given them permission to see one report only. And then the third one is if you show them certain reports, a subset of reports with an app. Now, consumers A and B in this picture, they don't see the workspace listed. They just see it. They just see a report shared with them, or an app in their apps blade in Power BI service. Okay, so let's focus on sharing just one report out with people. Okay, when you open a report in Power BI service, you open up a report in the workspace. It gives you a link on the top, right? You can take that link and email it to somebody, but that somebody is not going to get permission. It's just a link, right? They put the link, unless you have given them viewer permission or above, they won't be able to see the report. So you must give them permission. So this link is different than the link that I'm going to show in the next slide. Now, if you, instead of getting that link on the top, if you click on the share button, you get a pop-up window that will generate a link for you. Now, the links that are generated here, they are not just a link, but they will also give the person permission. So there's a difference. These are not the regular links. They will give you permission, and you probably have seen more and more of these in the rest of the Office application, Microsoft Office applications. So by default, it comes with people in your organization. You can copy the link, email it, embed it in Teams. If you click on this option, you can change it. So it can go to people in your organization, which means it will generate a link that everybody can click on, and whoever clicks on it will get access. So you need to be careful by this, by sharing this. Nobody outside your org can get to it, but people inside, as long as people email this around, whoever gets to it, they can automatically get access. And then you can share with certain people, or you can share with, you can regenerate a link, okay? So let's take a look at the options. This took me a while to figure out. So the people in your organization, remember, whoever gets the link, okay, will immediately get access. Will permanent read access to this report. Not only that, if I email it to someone else, then that person will also get permission, okay? That's the main difference between people in your organization and specific people. With specific people, you say everybody in this AD group. So the link will only work in that AD group. So if someone from that AD group emails someone outside of the AD group, that other person is not going to be able to get permission to see the report. And then this middle one is only if somebody forgot the link to the report that has already been given permission to, okay? So hopefully this is clear. It took me, like I said, it took me a while to get this right. Now, obviously, there's an option here that says allow recipients to share it, right? So you can stop it from the get-go. They won't be able to share it back out. And then there's this option that says whether or not you want them to have the build permission. So we're going to come back to this build permission in a little bit. Okay. Now, the last item that I had on that slide is sharing with the Workspace app, okay? Now, a Workspace app is like a container of reports. It's just a convenient way for people to access a bunch of your reports together, okay? The caveat is that every report that's in an app workspace or Workspace app, it's an actual copy of your report in your workspace. So it literally takes a copy of your report and puts it in this thing called an app. And sometimes that creates a problem because developers update a report, but it doesn't show in the app. Well, you have that extra step of updating the app for it to take the changes. This is a common problem that I see. But it can also be good because you can use it for an unofficial development production cycle, because you can make a change in the report in your workspace. You don't have to worry about affecting a production app. When you're ready, you can push it. Now, regardless of how the app is created, what reports you put in it, the moment someone opens an app, all of those previous rules still apply. So if it's an app that has been shared out of a premium workspace, everybody can get to it. If it's an app that has been shared out of a non-premium workspace or a shared workspace, everybody who gets to it must have a pro license. Okay, now, when you create an app, there's an option to install the app automatically. What this means is that when people go to their apps blade in Power BI, they're going to see it show up. Otherwise, they have to go to the store and install it. This is usually, so as soon as you click entire org, this is automatically disabled. It doesn't let you install for everybody, which is a good thing because you can clutter people's app blade if you're in a big company. So if you choose specific individuals or groups, of course, you can have an AD group that covers most of your organization. It is not recommended that you do that. Installing an app has some implications when you're embedded somewhere else, and I'll get to that in one moment. And the ability for you to be able to, as a user, as a Power BI developer, to install the app automatically is controlled by a tenant setting. So your tenant admin can turn it off for you to be able to push the app to your end users. So sometimes you may want to limit who can do that, because if you have a large organization and you're worried about people sharing information they're not supposed to, then you can turn it off at this point, or you can control it to a special AD group that can be your governance group, and they will be able to publish it out and install it automatically. Now, the build permissions, we're getting closer to that one question that came up earlier. So the build permission, everybody who's a member of a workspace, whether they're viewer, contributor, member, or admin, they can build off of a data set that's been published, right? But what if you want to give people from other workspaces the ability to build off of it, or you shared with somebody, you want them to be able to also use your data set because you've put a lot of time into it, it's a great data set. What do? You must enable the build permission for them to be able to analyze in Excel, use the XML endpoint to connect to it. And you can do this either via the app or directly from a workspace report. So you don't have to do it just for the app. You can do it for just one report too. When you're sharing, that's one of the options. It says, do you want to give them build permission? So the app is the best way to share content with a broad audience. It's very easy. Well, before this newer way of sharing one report came about, the only way for you to share with the entire org was to share with an app, right? Now that this new way of sharing is around, I don't know if this is necessarily true. App is a better choice if you're bundling report, giving them a certain navigation behavior. The good thing about the app is that its link doesn't change unless if you unpublish it and republish it. However, keep in mind that the app link always redirects to the first report in the app. And if you go and remove that first report for some reason, then your app link is going to indirectly break because people are going to bookmark it. It's going to roll to the first link, which is the first report, and it's not going to be there. So one way to get around that is to favorite either the app by a Power BI service or have people manually create the link directly to the app before it rolls over in the browser. All right, so let's go and take a look at an app demo. So hopefully some of that information at least was clear. So let me go back to Workspaces. I'm going to go to, so now if you take a look here, you can see that the workspaces have a diamond next to them. They are premium workspaces. This one that has a person next to it is a Premium Per User Workspace. And this one doesn't have any diamonds. This one's a shared workspace, okay? So I'm gonna go to this workspace and let's create an app. And from the get-go, you can choose which reports are included in the app. So I have 2 reports here. I want both of them to go. I'm gonna click on app, call this test app. I can change the icon, I can change the color. Now I go to navigation, you can disable it, or you can change the order, you can push reports around, you can hide certain reports. So for example, if a report is just for drilling 2, you can hide it so people have to take a certain navigational path to get to it. And so these are, you see that these are the links for the report. As I click on them, you can see that the last section, the GUID part of it is changing, okay? So let's leave it like that. And then I go to permissions. And this is where I can say entire org. Now look at this option. As soon as I do entire org, this grays out, right? But I can say individual groups. And I can pick individual person or an individual group. So for now, I'm just going to do entire org. And here's the build option. So I can allow people to build off of this. And then I'm going to say publish app. And I'm going to copy this. And we can also go, well, actually, let me put this in a new browser. Here we go. So did you see that link change on the top? So let me put it back one more time. So you watch the link and see how it rolls. It immediately changes. So if people go to the first page of the first report, so if someone bookmarks this using the browser bookmark capability and you move this report, if you remove it, I don't think if it's just moving it within the app, but if you remove it, you delete it, their link is going to break. So instead, ask people to use the favorite section in Power BI. So this is the app, and I have 2 reports listed together in one bundle. So that's what's nice about the report. And from here as well, you can export it. You can go to Teams, which I'll talk about in a moment, but that's pretty much the app experience, okay? Now let me go back here. So the build permissions, okay. So each workspace can only have 1 app with it, which is kind of limiting, right? Because sometimes people want to, they have 2 sets of audiences and they want to separate them out. They want to give them still an app, but they want them to have different views. It's not necessarily for security. So let's see how that works. So in Power BI Service, if you click on a data set, on a data set, right, you will get an option to connect to it via Excel or build a report. In order for you to be able to do this as an end user, you must have been given permission, the build permission to it specifically, okay? Now, a build permission, remember, again, all those license types are going to come back. So if you're a free user, you cannot build from a non-premium workspace. From a premium workspace, you can build, but you cannot publish it anywhere, okay? Now, there's a tenant setting that controls the ability for data sets to be shared across workspaces. If this is enabled, then you can do that. So how does this work? So what is one scenario? So one scenario is you have one workspace and you have a bunch of reports with it, and you have a data set, but you don't want to, you want to show a group of reports to a different group of people. This is not for security, it's just for convenience, okay? Rollable security is different. Rollable security works within the data set, within one workspace. Even when people connect to the report, they see different things. This is different. You want to show them different reports, okay? So what you can do is you can have a different workspace. Remember, workspaces don't have a cost with them. The cost is always either the capacity or the licenses, okay? So you can have a second workspace and create your reports in that second workspace off of the shared data set in the first workspace. And now you can have two apps. So people come into app 2, they will see report 2A and 2B. People will connect from app 1, will see report 1A and 1B. So I think this answers the question that came up earlier. So this is one scenario where you can share across workspaces. All right, so let's do a quick time check. All right, now we talked about sharing reports via links, via app, or giving people membership to a workspace. There are a couple of other options available. So you can share Power BI reports with Teams, which is becoming a more and more popular choice these days. You can share with SharePoint, and there's this thing also called subscriptions where people get emails of the reports. Okay, sharing in Teams, it's fairly easy. You can open a report, click on chat in Teams, and off you go. It will publish it to your channel, and everybody will be able to see it. Again, this does not give permissions. Okay, people must have permissions already, or you can do this with an app. The only gotcha with the app is that the app must be pre-installed for people. So if people haven't installed the app before, they must go and install it once, and then they'll be all set. Or if you're doing this in SharePoint, you can always put a link in there that says, if you haven't installed the app, please click here one time. It will take care of that issue. Also in Teams, you can directly open a Power BI app, and a tab, and you can embed your report. Now, to generate an embed report, you go to a file when your report is open, and they will give you different embed codes for different options. All right, so let me just skip ahead from this one. I'll show you this in the demo. And then finally, the subscription. So if you can subscribe to other people's reports to get it via email on a certain schedule, or if you are the creator of a report, you can subscribe other people to it, okay? All right, so now let me go to a demo. All right, so let's go back to the workspace. Actually, I'll go back here. Okay, so go to workspace, so first let's look at it from the report. So I have the report open. I can click on chat in Teams. This will open a window. Sometimes it's not happy. If it's not happy, click on try opening in a different window. Sometimes it is browser sensitive, so try from a different browser if it's not working. Okay, so I am going to, let me see, post to my channel, and I'm going to say share. And let's go and take a look at Teams. There he goes. So in a Teams channel, I got a link that says test per user, says check this report out. And then I can click on it, and this will open the report. Okay, so this is one way. So you can post into your Teams channel about your reports. People can have conversations about it. They can say, oh, this is great. And then the other way to do it is like this. If you go to the Add a tab, you can choose Power BI. And from here, you can pick one particular report. So these are, by the way, here I'm seeing slightly different workspaces because I'm actually logged in with my other account here, okay? So I see these workspaces. I do not see the one that I was demoing, okay? So let me go to this one. I'll pick this one, and I'll say save. And now in this Teams channel, there's going to be a tab that opens up that particular Power BI report. Now, people must have access people must have access to the backend report and all that. Now, here's the gotcha that I was talking about. If you choose, so you just notice how I can choose reports from Workspaces, or I can go and choose an app. If you choose the app, if you choose a particular app, the app must be pre-installed for people for it to work. Otherwise, they get an error in Teams here. So that's kind of like a chicken and egg problem, because you don't want to auto install the app for everybody in your organization. But at the same time, if you're embedding it, you want people to get to it. So hopefully you have access to smaller AD groups that don't cover the whole org, but a smaller subset, and you can use that method. So this is sharing in Teams. It's fairly easy. Let me close this one. And then SharePoint. Let's go to SharePoint. Okay, so this is my SharePoint site. I'm going to go to this page, and I'm going to go to Edit. And let's add a part. So there is a web part here, or control, so I can choose Power BI. And here I can click on Add a Report. And this link here is the embed report that I can get from here. So if I go to Workspace, and actually I have it here. Okay, so if I go to File, Embed Report, SharePoint Online, this will give me the link. And I go back here, put the link, and it takes it a moment. And then you can choose which page, and off you go. This is the embedded report. So now this is published. So again, if you are embedding, remember there's a difference between embedding the report versus embedding an app. With the app, it must have been pre-installed for people. So one trick that people do is that they put a message in here that says, hey, if you're getting an error message, click on this to install the app once. And people can tell if they have apps installed by just going to their apps place. So these are installed. So here's the thing. I haven't checked it recently, but when apps are auto-installed for you, at least up to a month ago, you could not delete it. So that was the problem, is that people could not uninstall them. So you would not get an app option to delete it, and that would make people upset. So you have to be careful with that auto install option. And then let me show you one last thing. So in this other window, I have my free user, okay? I can see like this was a message from before. Let me see if I can close it. So I can tell this is a free user because it says the free account, all right? Now, if I go to Workspaces, you see that somebody has added me as a member to this Premium Workspace, to the non-Premium Workspace, to this other Premium Workspace. So I have a membership. I think I can go there, but look what happens if I click on it. It will tell me immediately to use Power BI features, upgrade to a Pro license. And sometimes it does it for you automatically. So it bumps you up automatically, which is kind of annoying for the demos because I want my free user to stay a free user. Okay, so let's go back and do a quick review. All right, so summary, there is different ways to share. You can share a report out of Workspace. Now you know that that's a different copy of the report than the copy that could be in an app, Workspace app. You can share out of an app. You can embed in Teams. You can embed in websites. We didn't show it, but you can generate an embed code and put it in any websites that have a widget for embedding. Is fairly easy, similar to what we did with SharePoint. There's also that embedding outside of your organization, which takes a report and pretty much puts it somewhere. A copy of it, it's almost like out of your tenant. So there's no security. You cannot secure that. So got to be careful. It's for data that everybody can see. You must own the data before you do that as well. So we looked at all these options. From these options, remember that the Workspace app continues to be the best option. And then we have the non-Power BI service one. So if you're just playing with Power BI service, with Power BI desktop, and you want to share it with someone else, you don't have access to the service, you can always email it, put it on or put it on the shared drive. So I will share the slides later on with you. I also have a copy of it on my blog available from a previous presentation if you want to go check it out. And that brings me to the end of the presentation. So thank you so much. Feel free to connect with me and let me know what questions you have. So I'm looking at the chat. I don't see any questions. Feel free to come off mute and let me know.
Shabnam, thank you so much for compiling this for us. I just recently got access to Power BI via Teams, and so I'm looking forward to experimenting with that. Do you have any thoughts on use cases of people who are using Power BI with Teams?
So for example, I've seen where, for example, people are upgrading, people are working on upgrading a set of servers, Windows servers or SQL servers, and they want to report on the status of it, and they don't want to ask the team members or higher ups where they're reporting to go to Power BI service. They don't want them to log into Power BI service. They're just used to going to Teams and communicating. So that's the nice thing about working within Teams, and people can comment on it. They can say, hey, why is it this number like this? They can kind of have a conversation with it. So I think that's where it becomes powerful.
Right. Okay, that's great.
Because I can type a comment here. I can say, why is, the number whatever it is, and then next person can respond to me, and you can kind of go back and forth. So it's for, again, another option for collaboration.
Right. Okay.
Shabnam, does that work the same if you've got the app installed in there, because you obviously have the report installed in Teams? If you've got the app, can you also collaborate via the app? Because I know in the service, it doesn't have the option to add comments to the app version of a report.
Right, I believe so. Let me see. Let me see if I can find, I believe so. Let me see if this will come back. So this would have been an app.
Okay.
So I think you can still continue with the conversations here.
Okay, cool. Okay.
Mm-hmm. The only catch is that, remember, the difference is that this one does not require any pre-install or anything, just a permission thing. This one requires an explicit install, either by forcing it by you, or pointing people to going and installing it themselves.
Okay. I'll let people ask the easy questions, then I've got a slightly more complex one to ask.
Okay.
Okay, well, if more questions come up for Shabnam, please jump in. Shabnam, you are absolutely welcome to, oh, well, yes, I'm sorry, I looked at your time. I'm like, wow, we're at the end of our session, but I see we are not. You're in a different time zone than I am.
Yes.
Roll over to our beginner and intermediate questions. Shabnam, you are absolutely welcome to stay with us on the call. We would love your insight on any questions. But we also understand it's almost 8 o'clock your time, and if you need to jump off, then we absolutely appreciate your time.
Shabnam, can I just ask a quick question then on sharing before we get to the other ones? Is if you've got you showed very briefly where you had a report and data set in a workspace A, and then 2 reports in Workspace B connected to the data set in Workspace A. Is there, if you, this challenge we've got is that we've got a whole lot of reports that we've published in Workspace A. And is there an easy way to be able to, because you can only create an app, because all the reports within one workspace go into one app. What I'm wanting to see is whether I'm able to share a report from Workspace A in Workspace B without having to publish that report into Workspace B as well. So I don't have to publish the report into 2 or more different workspaces. I don't know if that's possible.
Oh, the one report in 2 different workspaces.
Yeah, one report published into Workspace A, but then you share a link from, say, Workspace B to Workspace A, and then you put those shared links into an app, and then people can use it.
That I have not done that, and I am thinking the answer is no, because each workspace has its own storage. So I don't know. Hold on a second. So if you, oops, I'm with my free user. So let me go back here. I go here, and if I go to, okay, so first of all, let me go to all. So look here, this AdventureWorks demo is both the dataset and the report are in this workspace. This Blue Lotus Pool Company, only the report is here. The actual dataset for it is in a different workspace. I know that because I don't see the dataset.
Yeah, you can click on click on the
Right. So the lineage actually shows me it's sitting in my Power Automate workspace. Okay. So, but I know that's not what you asked, but let me show you something. If I go to update app, this is something that we did for one customer. So if you go to navigation, there is a way in your app from this workspace, I can add a report from another workspace. I cannot put one report into Workspace so that members of the workspace see it, but I can put it in the app of this workspace.
Okay, yeah, well, that's another option is that would still work, is having.
So you go to link, and then you put the link to that other report in here.
Okay, and then when you update that app, when you update the reports in the other workspace, do you then have to come back and update the app in this workspace then as well? Or will it automatically?
It's been a while since I've done that, but I'm leaning towards yes, because remember, the copy of the report in a workspace is different than the copy of the report
in the app. Yeah.
So if I were to bet, I would bet on you must update the app for the changes to take effect.
And is there an automated way to do it, like through PowerShell or something like that?
I haven't done that again.
Cool. Okay. Cool.
I think you can do it in the workspace and save, like Shabnam, go to the workspace, and there's a way to do it. On the top, the blue file, if you hover on, there's the dots. Yeah, click on the dots. There's one that save a copy. If you click on save a copy, it allows you to save a copy to a different workspace. But it's not a link.
Right. It creates a copy, but
it creates another
over. Correct,
but not a link. You can.
Yes.
Yep. That's how you can have a version and stay in 2 workspace, but they eventually become 2 separate copies. So I don't know if that's what he was asking.
Well, that's what I was asking as well. But I mean, obviously, then you've got 2 separate entities, which you've then still got to update both of them.
Yes. So exactly.
It's trying to find the easy way of updating one with as little effort.
I'm with you. I think I would like to do that if I have to do it.
Not being lazy, but being efficient.
The link is easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. No, thanks very much.
That's right. Yep.
You're welcome.
Hi, I have another question. What is the best way to set up, say, a development environment, a QA environment, and a production environment? Do you do that at the workspace level, the app level, or what's the best way to set up like 3 different environments like that?
I would say check out the deployment pipelines for that. So it will allow you to, and each one, because with that, you will get workspaces and apps. So you can push your content. So of course, that's if you want to do it in an official way. You can do it manually too. You can manually create 3 different workspaces and move your content, but it's easier to check out the deployment pipelines. So you create a pipeline, you start from one workspace. Usually you can start from a development and it will create the others for you. You can go in either direction. So you can start from a production, it will create dev and QA for you. You can go from dev, it will create QA and prod, and then you can push content from one to the other. And the nice thing about the deployment pipeline is that you can define, for example, different SQL connections. So as you're pushing your data from QA to prod, if you have different database connections, it will automatically for you. You don't have to manually change it every time as you're pushing your content. Does that make sense?
Yeah, do you have to have the premium license to have that feature, or is that part of the pro license?
Oh, I don't remember this either. I think it's
deployment is premium.
It's premium. Yeah, premium
Okay.
or premium per user.
Yeah, because I don't think my organization even has that option.
All the good features, right?
Okay, no problem.
I mean, what I've done, to answer your question, is what I've done in our organization is that I've got a workspace that we use for any sort of development of reports, and then once they finished off, then we'll publish them into the live workspaces. That's because we're also working on shared capacity as well, so we don't have deployment pipelines, and that's I found as be the best way to sort of deal with it.
Yeah, and to me, another important part to that is, like, if you got multiple people that could possibly work work on that PBIX file, is have a common place that you share it, so that you know what's in your development workspace is, say, in a Teams folder or a SharePoint folder, and then when you're ready to deploy to your next workspace, whoever is going to do that has the right place to get the right copy of it, so that you know what you're moving forward. It's a little more manual, but it can be done.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Hey, this is Jay. I do have a question regarding the same, the deployment pipeline. That's a great feature, actually. So is it actually possible for me to use a different capacities with the deployment pipelines? Like, say I have a capacity for dev, I have a capacity for QA, and I have a capacity for prod. And is it possible for me to move from different levels to prod using this deployment pipeline, having in production or somewhere other capacity?
Yes. Sorry, I'll just jump in on this. Yes, you can, but that scenario sounds expensive. So remember the premium capacities for each P1 capacity starts at $5,000 a piece.
Right.
So what actually most people do is they will have one premium capacity, and then the primary developers will have premium per user. And then, and we do this all the time. Our development workspaces are put on our PPU licenses, so only our developers can get to it, as was demonstrated here. And then our test and production are put on our P1 in order to use that actual capacity. But if you have a capacity per, you'd have to have a pretty big shop to have a dedicated $5,000 per month capacity for each environment.
Yes, definitely.
So,
Yes, yeah, that's a good call. Yes, definitely. Yeah, my organization is pretty big on analytics, and we have three P1s and one large P3. So we're planning on upgrading them to Gen 2 soon because it's available today as of morning. For Gen 2 is G8 on ECS2 Virginia. So we're planning on that. The real problem we are trying to tackle is the large groups. What we have across the organization used by global wide almost 15,000 people per BI thing, and so these most of the people actually collate my P3 with all kinds of different workspaces. POCs, right from the POCs all the way up to prod in the same capacity, and causing the concurrency to blow off and go to the thresholds of it, and then also delaying my refreshes during my business time hours. So which is causing us a catastrophic issues, and whenever there are monthly and quarterly report runs on it. So
yeah, you may even consider, depending on who's architecting everything, right? You may consider you for your developers and your testers. It might be cheaper that way, and then your P3 is only for production, right?
Exactly. We are planning in that route right now, and then place the governance in the middle of everything, so that people would having. I don't want policing people around, but definitely governance would help. I'm actually exploring that area of governance today to get it involved in the organization.
You said exploring governance?
Yes, governance in the capacities, yeah.
So let's put a pin in that to see if there's any more questions around this presentation. But I have some things that we could talk about during the open question period. I think we're still trying to wrap
definitely
part up, because I definitely have some ideas for you.
Definitely. Thank you so much. Yeah.
I don't know if
It's taken a long time to. There you go.
Yeah. So this is because this is my personal. This is my personal environment, right? So I'm not running it on a high-powered capacity, right? So it takes a while. That's why you see the slowness. But basically, it just took. Now since I started with the premium, it looks like it created another premium.
Yes.
Workspace, of course. But the question was whether you can change the assignment for this to put it in a different capacity, and I think it would let you. So right now I only have one here, but I think you can actually, if you had multiple capacities, you can move stuff. So that what someone was explaining is a common scenario where you have your development sitting in a development capacity, and then maybe even your tests, and you separate them out from the production.
Yeah, and we do that, right? Because we use PPU for it, and then I've actually had workspaces created on the wrong capacity, but it's where you showed it. It's just, it doesn't impact the deployment pipeline. And what is interesting is, like you said, when you create the deployment pipeline and then you tell it to deploy to the next or the previous environment, even if the person doing that is not an administrator on the capacity allowed to create the workspaces, it will create it in that scenario for them. So all of a sudden you could have a new workspace on your capacity that your capacity admin didn't create. So
that's not, so that has not been my experience, by the way.
Really? Because I had that experience. I haven't had a chance to report it or to prove it again.
Okay.
But I had somebody who right, they were in that. I needed to put them on my premium capacity for licensing issues. They went ahead and created a pipeline on their own, did the deployment, and then all of a sudden the new workspace showed up, but they're not allowed to assign workspaces on the capacity.
They're not allowed to assign workspaces on the capacity. Okay.
Right.
Is it a premium so they can create? Everybody can create shared workspaces.
Right. No, it because it's a pipeline, it has to go onto a premium capacity.
Right. So
And
that
so-
actually, yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. So it was very interesting. But yeah, I'd have to get onto our premium capacity to prove it out again, and I'd have to get multiple users or get somebody else assigned to try it for me to prove it to Microsoft. So I haven't reported it yet, but I definitely saw it.
I'd place one on that. We have seen the scenario.
Interesting.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden they're admins in that workspace, and then they could do anything they want, and so you're no longer governing what they could push up there. So my recommendation is whoever you consider like your overall capacity admin, get all the environment, get each workspace set up, and then like you talked about earlier, properly assign the smaller number of admins, and the other roles, so that you can govern and push it through correctly.
If you email me or reach out to me, I can verify this. And one tenant that I have access to, I'm fairly certain it can be limited. So
Okay.
yeah, not everybody has assignment rights on capacities, right?
Right, which is why when I talked to one of the Microsoft employees about it, we were talking about reporting it. They're like, yeah, that's not right, but I know I saw it.
Maybe a new bug or issue.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I've got another quick question. We've had an interesting situation where a client is on premium and they have got a published data set to their environment, and it's the report's been published into the app. We've given a user build access to the data set. They can if they log into the service, they can create a report in the service essentially as a live connection to that data set. If they try and connect to that data set live connection from Power BI desktop, it will not let them access that data set, even using the same username and password. They can do it in the service, but they cannot do it from their desktop.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense, because unless if they're running into some kind of firewall issue, it doesn't make sense, because the build permission, the moment you give that, it allows people to connect via Excel or Power BI desktop. So I haven't seen the scenario you're explaining. It sounds something else is interfering.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. If they could get with their admin, the only thing is in the admin settings, right? There was that feature that came out relatively recently, right? That allowed you to set up that you had that it wasn't accessible through the internet type of thing, right? So it was VNet routing or something like that at the tenant level, right? If you look at your tenant settings, it's like all the way at the bottom or something like that. But I haven't heard of many people using that. And I would almost think they'd have to be on some type of VPN even just to get to the service. But yeah, I'm with you. That's pretty much unusual.
Well, that's what I thought as well. I was racking my brains. I was looking at all the settings, all the things, trying to work out, and yeah.
The real simple one, right? And a lot of us that are consultants run into this, is make sure in Power BI desktop they're signed in as the correct user.
Yeah, that's right. That could be.
Well, he kept maintaining that he was logged in as the correct user, and it's like
share the screen, and if you can't show it to me, it's not true.
Yeah. I've often found that, I must say, it's sort of, I'm logged in, I know I am. And then you share the screen and you go, no, you're not. So
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been wonderful. I couldn't give feedback while I was on the road, but I think Amin's question that was in the chat earlier, and he mentioned he had to go to the airport, but I do think you did answer it when you were mentioning that earlier. So we'll make sure that he, I'm sure when he listens to the rest of this, he'll find that part. So we really, really appreciate this this presentation.
Thank you for having me. Nice meeting you all virtually.
Yes.
Maybe someday in person.
Yes, someday, one of these days.
Yes.
I'll be at an in-person conference in Houston next week, so they're starting.
Wow, that's nice.
Michelle, do you want to go ahead and stop the recording, and we'll go into kind of if people want to ask questions type of thing?